Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Batra, page 80, A, top of the page. Pei Amud Aleph, top of the page with a new Mishnah. The Mishnah is Halokeach Peros Shovach Mechavero. The Mishnah says if one who buys the produce of a dovecote from another, Mafriach Brecha Rishona, Peros Kaveres Notel Shlosha Nechilim, Umsares, Chalos Devash, Beniach Shte Chalos, Esim Lakots, Beniach Shte Gorofios. One who buys the produce of a dovecote from another, meaning the doves that will hatch over the course of the year in a dovecote, must leave the first pair of doves from the brood for the seller. If one buys the produce of a beehive, meaning all the bees produced from a beehive over the course of a year, the buyer takes 3 swarms, and then the seller renders the bees impotent so that they will stop producing offspring. Not sure how he does that, but okay. Offspring instead produce only honey. One who buys honeycombs must have 2 combs. If one buys olive trees for felling, he must leave 2 shoots for the seller. And now for the Talmud. Ve'atanya brecha rishona shniya amrav kahana lokashia hala la'ima. The Mishnah teaches that one who buys the brood of a dovecote must leave the first pair of the brood for the seller. The Gemara asks, but isn't it taught in the Braita that one must leave the first and the second pairs of a brood for the seller? Rav Kahana said, this is not difficult. This statement in the Mishnah is referring to the pair left for the first pair of the brood itself, meaning an extra pair of doves must be left behind to ensure that the first brood will not fly away. The statement of the Braita is referring to a pair left for the mother of the pair discussed in the Mishnah. In other words, the Braita is saying that one must leave a pair of doves for the mother and later a second pair from the brood of her children, which is the pair mentioned in the Mishnah. And this is an incredible connection. And when I was writing, I did a series called Ideas in the Realm of Gematria from the Parsha and Daf Yomi. Now, this would definitely be a connection to this week's Torah portion, because in this week's Torah portion, it talks about the mitzvah of Shiluach HaKen, sending the mother bird away. And now, this Mishnah here is just this is the Friday right before we read this portion of the Shiluach HaKen. Talks about a dovecote, and a dovecote halokeach peros shovach mechavero mafriach brecha rishona. So that's a definite connection of the birds and her children, and that's Shiluach HaKen. That person has to chase away the mother bird if she's sitting on her chicks. Ma'ishna ima de mistava de abarta vazuga de shavkinan le ahinami titzavis atzma ima. Azuga de shavkinan le ima abarta mistava de barta aima lo mistavuta. The Gemara asks, what is different about the mother that there is no concern that she will escape from the dovecote? If the reason is that she is attached to her daughter, and the mate which one leaves for her this should also be true with regard to the daughter, meaning that she too will become attached to her mother and the mate which one leaves for her. Why then is it necessary to leave behind a pair of the daughter's own brood to ensure that the daughter will not leave? The Gemara answers, a mother is attached to her daughter, whereas a daughter is not attached to her mother. Therefore, in order for the daughter to remain in the dovecote, it is necessary to leave the daughter's brood with her. Peros kaveres noito shlosh nechilim mesares bekam mesares bamem mesarson am Rav Yehuda Shmuel bechardal. Imri Marav Mishmei Rav Yossi Bar Chanina Lo Chardal Bisarsan Ela B'toch Shepihen Chad Chozos Oichlos Es Du Shanan. The Mishnah teaches that one who buys the produce of a beehive takes 3 swarms, and then the seller renders the bees impotent. He's Masaris the bees. How are you Masaris bees? How do you castrate the bees? I mean, to use that word, I mean, whatever. How do you render them impotent? Let's put it that way. Very carefully. No, I'm just kidding. Rav Yehuda said that Shmuel said he renders them impotent by feeding them mustard. Okay, interesting. Mustard can whatever do that to a bee. Okay, they said in the West, Eretz Yisrael, in the name of Rav Yossi Bar Chanina, it is not the mustard itself that renders them impotent. Rather, since their mouths sting from the bitterness of the mustard, they return and eat their own honey. Due to their excessive eating of honey, they cease to form new swarms, instead produce honey for the seller. Okay. Rav Yochanan amar noter shlosh nechilin beserus. Beserus. Bemasnis etana. Noter shlosh nechilin bezeh achar zeh. Mikan ve'elach noter lachas maniach achas. Rav Yochanan says this is not the meaning of misaris. Rather, the Mishnah should be understood as follows. One takes 3 swarms by skipping every other swarm so that the buyer receives the first, third, and fifth swarms, while the others remain with the seller. It is taught in a Braita. The buyer sells the first 3 swarms, one after the other, and from this point forward he takes one and leaves one. Chalos, devash, manichin shtei chalos. Rav Kahano devash b'kaveres and yoytzi midimachal yoylam alma kasavar lo'boy machshavo. The Mishnah teaches that one who buys honeycombs must leave 2 honeycombs, and one who buys olive trees for felling must leave 2 shoots. Rav Kahana says as long as the honey remains in the beehive, it never leaves its status as food. In other words, it always is considered fit for human consumption. The Gemara notes, apparently, if Kahana holds that honey does not require that one have intention to eat it to be susceptible to ritual impurity. Meisvei, I will ask you a question. I will ask you a very good question. Meisvei devash b'kaveres eino lo yochel v'lo mashke. Omer Abaye lo yitzricho ela oisun shtei chalois. Rav Omar the Rav Yelazer. The Gemara raises an objection from a Braisa. Honey in a beehive is not considered to have the status of either food or liquid with regard to ritual impurity. Abaye said this halacha, that honey is considered neither food nor liquid, is neither only with regard to those 2 combs mentioned in the Mishnah, which are designated for the sustenance of the bees and are not for human consumption. Rava said, the Braita is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Ad Kan Daf Pei Amid Aleph. That means until here is Pei Amid Aleph.